This truck is $100,000. So why is it that the price of vehicles is so expensive? So it's simple, right? It all boils down to supply and demand, at least on the new car side. So I'm a used car dealer. This is my car lot and these are my cars behind me. So the used car market doesn't exactly follow the same principles as most markets when you're talking about supply and demand. But I'll get into that in just a little bit. All right, so what had happened was we went through this time period where production on the OEM side was very, very limited. We had these supply chain issues. We had chips that weren't getting into these vehicles. And so what you had is you had a lot of these shells of vehicles sitting around and not getting to consumers. So because there was a shortage of new vehicles, it actually pushed more consumers into newer used vehicles. And this drove the prices of these newer used vehicles up. It got so bad that a company like CarMax can even sell some of these newer used vehicles for a higher price than what you could get them for new. And all of this, this lack of production was happening at the same time that money was just being pumped into the system. It was being pumped into the system in the form of stimulus, in the form of record low interest rates, in the form of unemployment benefits. So banks actually had a massive role in allowing all these prices to get to where they are today. So both on the new and the used car side, these banks were loaning way over the actual values of these vehicles to get consumers into these loans. And consumers, they didn't really care what the total price of these vehicles were. They were just going to pay it because all they really cared about is, you know what, what's my monthly payment? If I can afford my monthly payment, I can afford this car. So I'm going to buy it. And what this led to is because vehicle prices were so high, banks would actually extend the loans farther than what they've ever extended them before for these vehicles to actually get customers to a monthly payment that they could actually afford. Yeah, so I wanted to buy this Charger, but I can't afford the monthly payments. Well, what if we increase the time frame of your loan to decrease your monthly payment? Yeah, that would be great. All right, great. We'll set you up with a 30-year mortgage plan. And it's good that it's a mortgage because you're probably going to have to live in it. And all those things were causing this massive increase in demand because people just had money flowing in from everywhere, right? So at this time, you had everyone spending money like drunken sailors. A car lot like this that is full now, it was actually very close to empty. So this created this massive rush to, you know what, if I want a vehicle right now, I just got to pay whatever it costs because there's not any out there. So dealers were actually selling these vehicles for 140, 160% over what the actual value of the vehicle is. And you know what? They wouldn't be able to do that if they couldn't get these consumers into loans. So the banks had to step up and they had to loan more, 160% of what the actual value of the vehicle was. The banks allowed this to happen, customers signed up for it, and dealers, at the end of the day, they charged it for it. And because we had all of these supply chain issues, materials cost way more, and a company like Ford would actually have to pay way more to produce their vehicles. So at the end of the day, the customer is going to pay for that too, right? It costs Ford more to produce the vehicle, it's going to cost the customer more to purchase the vehicle. So because of this limited supply, dealers knew that they were going to be selling fewer vehicles. So what did they do? They wanted to make more on a per vehicle basis. And now what we see has arose from this is the dealer markup, the crazy dealer add-ons. Yeah, so I'd like to buy this F-150. That's great because it is on sale for $100,000 right now. That seems high. And we also have our standard add-ons. We have a dealer market adjustment of about $35,000. We'll have your paint protectant for $1,000, wheel locks for another $1,000. We got your nitrogen. You can't go without the fancy air. That's another $599. You got your dock fee for $799. You got your inconvenience fee for another $1,000. Oh yeah, and you're going to want to get gap insurance. Where'd you go? So now what is a dealer markup? All it is basically a fee that the consumer is going to pay that is just pure profit for the dealer. I've seen dealer markups $5,000, $10,000 on top of these MSRPs. I've even seen a dealer markup that on a Ford Lightning that was $35,000. That is ridiculous. And what's happened is because these dealers have gotten used to overcharging these consumers, even though production has caught back up, even though a lot of these lots, they're starting to get filled back up, they're still holding a lot of these dealer add-ons, a lot of these dealer markups, a lot of these market adjustments, and because they know that there's some consumers out there that will pay them. So I'm telling you, don't pay them. So RAV4s are actually a prime example of this. These are the most sought after vehicles right now in this market because you can't get them. Toyota did not make enough of them. They're not pumping enough out to the dealers to be able to keep up with the demand. So all of the RAV4s that you can get through brand new dealerships are all on back order. You have to be put on a wait list. You have to order and you can't get them. So what I've seen time and time again at CarMax, I've seen it at these new Toyota dealerships, is they have RAV4s that are a year, 2 years old. They have 10 to 30,000 miles, and they're actually selling those model RAV4s for a higher price than you can get a brand new one. So I'm at a Ford dealership right now, and what is keeping the average price of vehicles very elevated is that the type of vehicles that these OEMs are actually putting out. So right here we've got F-150s, we've got some Explorers over here, some Expeditions back there, we got Escapes. But if you notice, what you're not going to see at any of these Ford dealerships, you're not going to see at any of these GM dealerships, you're not going to see at any Stellantis, your Jeep, Dodge, Ram, you're not going to see any four-door economical sedans. And coming from these OEMs is actually by design. And what I mean by that is that they know that they're going to make way more money on these F-150s. They know that they're going to make way more money on these big SUVs versus a smaller four-door sedan. So what they're doing is they're focusing all of their strength, all their production into these higher margin products. And that's why they've stopped making the Fusions. They've stopped making the little Focus, all the little four-door cars, the Impalas from GM. They're not making these things anymore. They're not pushing their production into that realm of vehicle for that type of consumer that wants to buy something that's more affordable. All right, and now what do we have happening? We have the UAW that's going on strike. And what's this going to do to the market? Well, it all depends on how long they're actually on strike. I know personally that I've talked to some GMs of some dealerships, and what they're doing is they're buying all the parts they can right now, and they're buying all the upper end used vehicles they can because they are worried that the strikes are going to be prolonged for a very, very long time. And what's that going to do? That's going to cause them to not be able to get new vehicles into their dealership. So that's going to push up the price of the vehicles that they currently have, and that's also going to push up the price of the newer used vehicles. Because if a lot of these dealerships are starting to buy up the newer used vehicles, that's going to push up the demand for them, which is going to push up the price that dealers have to pay, and that's going to push up the prices that the consumers have to pay. And in the car market, that's going to have just a massive trickle-down effect because the dealers who were buying these newer used vehicles, now they'll have to tear down, making the middle tier vehicles more expensive because there's more buyers. That's going to push more dealers down into the cheaper end of the used vehicle spectrum, pushing those prices up. So these strikes could have a ripple effect across the whole market, making prices spike. So what you're going to see right now, especially on the new side, especially on the big three, the Ford, the GM, the Stellantis, all those brands, those dealers are going to be more reluctant to actually cut prices. They're going to be more reluctant to actually make a deal with you right now because they're all worried right now this strike's going to last a very long time, and then they're not going to get vehicles. So they're going to make sure that they're going to make as much money as possible on you right now, just in case they don't have another vehicle to fill that spot after you buy that one. So the dynamics of supply and demand don't really work the same way in the used car market as they work in most other markets. See, how a used car dealer like myself gets used car inventory to actually sell on our lots is from used car dealer auctions. And a majority of cars that go through these auctions are actually new car trade-in. So for us to get supply at these auctions, we need people to buy new cars and trade in their old cars. So it's actually the inverse of demand for us to get supply. When demand is down, especially on the new car side, we have less inventory. So demand down, inventory is down. When demand is up, our inventory is up. So because new car dealers aren't selling very many vehicles because their prices are so elevated, they're not getting any trade-ins, meaning they're not able to send them to used car dealer auctions, meaning that used car dealers like me are having to fight over very limited inventory at these auctions, which are driving the used car prices through the roof. So for supply to go up on the used car side, we need new cars to be selling. We need the demand for new cars to be way up. We got your $3,000 lift kit that we paint with a cool looking spider and charge you $30,000 for it. We got your bumper dillo, I don't even know what that is, and that's $9.99. We've got door edge guards for $3.99. We've got, and that's one per door, so $3.99 times 4. Let's just go ahead and say that's another $2,500. We got your inside sanitation fee. You got your nitrogen, your fancy air. You know you can't do it without your fancy air. That's $5.99. We got your wheel locks. We've got your mud flaps for how much you want to pay for mud flaps? No, that's stupid. All right. I just hit this wireless thing. Probably made a bunch of noise. Let's try again. Oh, that's wrapped up. His horns keep going off.